What is going on, YouTube? It is me, Milza, and yes, I am back and better than ever. So, make a long story short, I basically got sick with some newer variant of COVID. The shit fucked me up. Well, I'll be honest. It just completely kicked me on my ass, like almost like the first time if you had COVID and you know what that feels like. It was basically like that, and it took me a bit of a minute to recover. I didn't get hospitalized or anything, but it was just a bit longer than I wanted to be down. And then I just never was able to get back into the swing of things because once you miss work and all that other stuff, you just have to catch up on life and everything else. So, yeah. But I'm back. I'm finna start back uploading regularly again. And by regularly, I mean like my usual, like once a month or whatever, until I can get this thing rolling. But in the spirit of all that, today we're going to go back to what I had started the channel doing, which was reaction videos. And really just because it's kind of easier to ease myself back into being on camera, and also just because I really want to do this because someone asked me to do it. So, yeah. So for today's video, go ahead and get into it. We're looking at the channel Legendary Drops. I've seen this guy's content before. He usually talks about RPGs and just other like game news media stuff. And in this particular video, it's called "They're Taking Over Games and Nobody Stands a Chance." And I'm assuming this has to do with like a lot of the political stuff, I guess, being pushed in games. I don't really get into arguments about that, but I do have some strong opinions on, yay or nay for it, right? So like we'll see what he's talking about. And I just wanted to honor this, and someone asked me to do it, so I'm gonna do it, and we're gonna roll into it. So thank you guys for watching, and let's get into it. Cool. All right, hopefully I'm not too fucking massive on this thing, but let's hear what Mr. Man has to say about this. I'm curious now.
Make sure that I'm not losing my mind, that I'm not seeing things, because from my perspective, it looks like all the games the players are the most excited for, the ones that they're enjoying the most, the ones that they're talking about the most, the games that have been the most successful outside of a couple of outliers. I'm not saying that it's all of them, but they're all coming from the East. Elden Ring, Pal World, Tears of the Kingdom, Armored Core 6, Monster Hunter, Resident Evil, Black Myth Wukong, Space Marine 2, Marvel Rivals, Final Fantasy, and I already know that I'm going to enjoy Stellar Blade once it releases on PC.
That is true.
Now, I'm not saying that all
Actually,
Eastern games are great and all Western games are bad. No, there's definitely there's a handful of good games in the West. Believe me, I put 400 hours into Baldur's Gate 3. But with that said, the list is very short on the Western side of things. And I think this is something that the vast majority of the industry doesn't want to discuss, especially games media, because, well, it means that they're losing relevance. Western games are losing relevance by extension. Western media then loses its relevance as well. There's been a cultural shift over the years where players are not being prioritized, but these Eastern studios are prioritizing those audiences. And as a result, because that cultural shift doesn't happen over there, well, they're taking advantage of a situation, and they are...
Yeah, and it's pretty obvious. So, like, it's pretty obvious. I mean, like, he's by culture shifts. He's talking about a lot of the, like political agendas and stuff that get pushed in video games, and just kind of like things that like are probably from some perspectives intended to bring the game to a larger audience, but don't necessarily matter when it comes to the actual like larger player base. And it's probably like a lot of the, like a lot of the grifter content that's been coming out lately, just where it's like, a guy wants to, spend 2 hours talking about how a game is super woke, or, somebody right wing, overpraising a game, or because it's, super liberal or whatever. I don't know. I think in that aspect, yes, Western games are taking a hit to relevance, because at a point that type of stuff does start to affect development cycles and things like that. And even if you don't have, other like obstacles like money and things like that are stopping you from making a game as good as you want it to, those things can also make you spend more money in places where you could have, maybe saved some money and just focused on making the game fun, because that's what we want, is games that are fucking fun. So, like, I don't know. I'm sure that's what he's about to get into, but I just wanted to say that I'm pretty sure that's kind of what he's hinting at. I don't know if he's ever gonna like say it, but I'm almost certain that's what he means.
Skyrocketing in popularity. They're gaining more players, they're gaining more influence, and more importantly, they're gaining more money, which makes them a major threat to the rest of the industry. We're talking about heading towards a world that has a heck of a lot more Black Myths and Marvel Rivals and a lot less Dragon Age the Veilguard and Concords. That's not good for a lot of people in this industry, I'll tell you that right now, because, well, as these Eastern studios continue to be successful, as they're able to produce way more games than a lot of these Western studios because of the financial position many of them are in, well, their investors are going to turn around and ask them, why aren't you doing that? They're going to say, well, we can't. But before we get into that, Monster Hunter Wilds is right around the corner, and with it is coming some of the craziest PC specs I've ever seen required. So you guys could use today's sponsor, Starforge. I've been loving my new PC from Starforge Systems. It's incredibly quiet, sleek, and lightning fast. It's a way better build than I could do myself, and they've got something for everyone. They got Horizon PCs, which are great for your everyday gamer, much more affordable, and just great for a first-time user or even experienced players. You can kick it up a notch. Go into their Navigator series that are packed with next-gen components, giving you some truly high-end performance. But if you're a content creator or an enthusiast like me, well, their Voyager series has everything that you're going to need. Starforge has a ton of incredible customization options with PCs inspired by popular games like Terraria and old-school RuneScape, anime like Freeren, and even their own original designs. And if you really want to customize, they got limited run designs, plate lights, desk mats, and even posters to match your setup. Every PC is hand-built in Austin with premium quality and a PC of your dreams. There is a clear divide between games made in the East and those made in the West, and I found myself enjoying more Eastern games more and more, and I know that I'm not alone. You don't have to look that hard to see the difference. Eastern games are thriving while Western titles are drowning in complaints, controversy, and creative stagnation. These studios and publishers get it. Culturally, they get it. They understand what players want, and they're delivering it without compromise. I boot up Monster Hunter, Black Myth Wukong, Final Fantasy XVI, and it feels like peak is the only thing that they care about. They want you to experience something that is unforgettable. They want you to be blown away by the scale, spectacle, and raw excitement. I'm tracking down monsters, and I'm fighting them and crafting armor out of their bones in Monster Hunter. Their developers painstakingly research ecology to make sure that they can create a realistic
I think a good thing to also mention for this, too, is that, like, Eastern companies also have the advantage of having a different culture overall that they're trying to appeal to. I think a lot of Western studios, like, they have a lot of like social guardrails and things that stop them from actually being able to do a lot of things that they might want to do. And then you have to build a game around all these different rules and regulations and things that may offend or not offend somebody, versus like in most Eastern cultures, you kind of are allowed to just say how it is, you know? Like, there's not really a whole lot of like, you know, having to dance around the fences of what you can and can't say, and what you can and can't propose, right? Really, just a big example of that is anime, right? Like, you have these animes that come out, and they are, you know, like almost borderline like CP or something. Like, I mean, like you have an anime where a guy is like fantasizing about being with a girl who's a vampire, but she looks 5 years old, but she's actually 3,000 years old, so it's okay if they have like, you know, mutual love interest or whatever. It's like you have to like at least take into account that they do have like very, very like low. I say low standards. I guess it's not really a standard thing. They just have lower cultural barriers than we have in the West, and that can be good and bad. Obviously, in the case of the gaming industry, it's been really bad because people just want games that are fun. They don't want games that are preaching an agenda or telling them, you know, this is how they need to react to a certain type of person. They don't need games that are introducing concepts to them that they don't really care about. They just want to fight things and escape from a lot of that. And when you lose sight of that, this is what happens. You have Eastern studios that are honestly probably just designing the game to their market, and then them doing better because of the fatigue that you get from playing games from Western media that are mostly, for the most part, usually trying to all find whatever the next big thing is and then just capitalizing off that. So you have a little of that too, like kind of market share thing where you're trying to just cling on to the next hottest thing versus in Eastern markets, you play to your crowd because your crowd is genuinely smaller. I guess in some areas, like a lot of Japanese gaming studios, right? Like they're really building their game towards, you know, their Japanese audience or like East Asian audience, right? Like, but and in a country like some of those areas, it's like less developed, so you have less people that are playing these games, and you have a better sense of like who your audience is versus in the United States or in the West, rather, you just have such a broad scope of people in more developed areas and just things like that where it makes it not harder to get your audience down, but it leaves a lot of ambiguity, if that makes sense. But yeah, let him continue on.
Ecosystem that feels alive, while at the exact same time, they're not making that their only priority. They're also delivering stylized combat that you'd only find in anime. I'm walking through China's cultural history, experiencing one of the oldest stories ever told, and fighting literal gods in Black Myth Wukong. I'm experiencing political upheaval and a world-ending crisis in Final Fantasy XVI, but every moment builds to something bigger. The stakes, the music, the sheer unrelenting spectacle.
Yeah, it's
I go
beautiful.
from trying to find the truth to fighting a dragon in space that is about to unleash a laser to destroy the world. Then we look at games like
Yeah,
Ninja
that shit
Gaiden,
was
Resident
cool,
Evil,
I'm not
Stellar
gonna lie.
Blade, an entire industry of gacha juggernauts unapologetically delivering cool, badass, and attractive characters. These studios are not afraid to give players what they want. Whether it's over-the-top action, ultra-stylized designs, or characters that are as powerful as they are attractive. Western games, well, they've been moving in the opposite direction. The androgynous, desaturated, corporate-safe designs that plague Western titles, nobody's asking for that. Certainly not the players.
That's the key word there, corporate safe. And so, like, this is the thing. As somebody who has a corporate job, I do not blame these people for being safe. Because, like, in a lot of these corporate structures, especially a lot of these bigger companies, a lot of these, like, Fortune 500 FANG corporations, like, being corporate safe will literally make or break your career. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's something you only understand if you're in that type of environment. Not like, yes, you like there are people who are able to push boundaries, but that's something that you get with like seniority. And from what I can tell, a lot of people working on these newer games are like younger people who are just being like told, okay, they have this much time to do the thing, and then this is the list of things that we want in the game, and this is based off some board who's just like, you know, using like these really stale metrics that don't actually listen to like player based feedback. It's just kind of like, you know, we'll filter out everything that's safe, and then anything that falls outside of that just won't get in the game. So don't even try to, you know, push it or implement it. So I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like we can harp all day long about how unfair it is and how much it's tearing up the games, but at the same time, like there needs to be a cultural shift, and I think we're seeing a little bit of that with the new presidential administration. But there needs to be an entire cultural shift on what's okay to portray and what's not okay to portray, and that's why you get beautiful scenes like that in Final Fantasy XVI. It is cool to do things like that because you have a studio that is behind that idea fully, and there's no, you know, like ancillary conversations about whether or not, you know, the and I hate to say this, but it's like whether or not, like, I don't know, Ifrit is non-binary or should, you know, be presented in some way, or it's like a lot of those conversations that he's talking about are considered, you know, corporate safe, and they override a lot of these other ideas that are really cool but take time to produce. And you're just going to keep seeing that unless there's a massive like cultural shift in what the priority is.
Certainly not women. I see countless 2B cosplayers, but I haven't seen a single person willingly dressing up as Abby from The Last of Us Part 2. So I guess we might see some Concord cosplays this year. But it's not just the aesthetics, it's the priorities. Eastern Studios are focusing on the player experience. It seems like the only thing they actually care about. They're not obsessing over realistic sweat physics in a first-person shooter. They're making sure that the controls feel incredible. They're not wasting time on irrelevant tech demos. They're refining gameplay mechanics to perfection. They aren't ballooning their budgets to insane proportions for the most useless things. They aren't trying to be Hollywood. They're trying to be video games.
I mean, the game
I've been
series,
replaying Armored Core 6, and it's one of the most visually stunning games that I've played. But here's the thing. It's not chasing photorealism. It's designed in a way that tricks you to feel like it is. You're so immersed in the gameplay, so locked into the experience that you don't care about environmental destruction or ray trace reflections because the game is so damn good that you don't need those things. Then I go back to Western AAA games, and what do I get? A checklist simulator, or a tutorial that assumes that I've never touched a controller before, a protagonist that will not shut up, constantly telling me what to think and what to feel, a game world that exists only to make a point, not to be explored. And their obsession with open world bloat, because why make a game feel big when you can make it look big? Western developers want to force you through a message. Eastern developers want you to lose yourself in the experience. They are holding your hands through a painfully self-important narrative filled with stiff, corporate-safe writing. They're letting you engage with a world that feels alive. Eastern games are just built different. That's why they are dominating, and that's why they're going to continue to dominate. It's going to make it harder and harder for a lot of these Western studios to be able to stay relevant. Now, Japanese games being popular isn't anything new. In many ways, Japan is what built the foundation of modern gaming. If it wasn't for Nintendo dragging the industry out of the gutter in 1983, well, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. But we're not just talking about Japan. It's China, it's Korea, and beyond. Apparently, nobody took notice that 2024 featured an entire wave of Eastern studios stepping into the AAA space, shaking up the industry, and forcing Western studios to confront the reality that they're not the only game in town anymore. And I noticed this shift when I saw historically mobile studios start to step up into the AAA premium game space. Take Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. This was a game by Cygames, a studio known for gacha games like Grand Blue Fantasy and Shadowverse. Why would they suddenly decide to make a AAA full production, full-priced game unless they knew it was a smart investment, unless they saw an area of opportunity? Turns out they did, because Grand Blue Fantasy Relink sold 1 million copies in just 11 days, and it is still continuing to sell. And the
fighting game was dog shit.
It happened again with Stellar Blade. Shift Up, another gacha-focused studio, jumped into AAA gaming, and the result? Another massive success. A game that sold over 1 million copies. It's likely to outsell its PlayStation numbers entirely once it actually launches on PC. Modders are going to have a field day with this one. Then a first-time Chinese studio delivers a AAA cultural masterpiece in Black Myth Wukong, a game that shattered Steam's concurrent player records and sold 20 million copies in 1 month.
20
It was bold,
million?
visually stunning, deeply rooted in mythology, blending diverse storytelling techniques and cinematic cutscenes, and had exhilarating combat that just kept you hooked. Its tight linear progression and light yet meaningful customization stripped away any necessary bloat. It just offered a pure content-rich experience that pulled you in and refused to let you go.
Buddha eating water. I feel like that's gotta be
$7 million, reaching 25 million players with 15 million copies sold on Steam. A game that crystallizes just about everything players have been asking for, what they've wanted, the freedom that they've wanted. Finally, we saw the release of Marvel Rivals, storming onto the scene with stylized characters, great gameplay, killer performance, non-intrusive monetization, and overall...
Yeah, now Marvel Rivals is a whole... This is a great example because, like, I've watched both Overwatch and League of Legends slowly die from the perspective that they tried so hard to make the game not fair, but they tried so hard to make the game like appeal to every single person that you get these characters and abilities in these games that make it super clear cut who's better and who's not. And it's like every game has a meta, right? Every game has like, you know, a strategy that works pretty well for the most part in most situations. But to me, that's one of the things that separates Marvel Rivals from most of our traditional Western like MOBAs and stuff like that, is the fact that like you are in a lot of the Western MOBAs, you have a game where they just it seems to be like there's no discipline in the development of the characters. There's no like forward thinking. It's just let's just do whatever we want with these characters and we'll fix it later after the character has broken the game. Versus in this game, it's like they came out with crazy like a crazy roster off the bat, a decent set of characters for everyone to play with, from like your girlfriend who's never played a game before to like the most experienced mobile players. All the characters are attractive. All the characters feel pretty good for the most part. I'm a little biased on Magneto. I don't really think he feels that great. But for the most part, the game is fun because every character is a good option most of the time. And it's because there was emphasis on playing on like how the character feels to play versus, all the other design elements around the character, right? Like it's the thing that makes the game fun is how the game plays. And it's like, yeah, if he's right, he's absolutely 100% right. Like if we don't start making more games that are doing that, then I mean, yeah, the Eastern gaming media market is going to like do this, and then the Western media market is going to keep going down if there's not like I said, like a massive cultural shift and misdirection. I don't know. A lot of that could be interpreted in a bunch of different ways, but yeah, Marvel Rivals is a insanely good example of what he's talking about, where you just have these just nuts, almost like Western MOBAs that just don't seem to get what makes the game fun and what makes it so fun to engage with people in a game like this. But yeah.
Overall, just a fun experience for players that helped the game reach over 600,000 concurrent players on Steam with over 20 million downloads across all platforms. With the success of these games, the shift is undeniable and it's not slowing down. 2025 is already shaping up to be another massive year for Eastern developers. Monster Hunter Wilds is going to explode, potentially breaking over 1 million concurrent players on Steam. I could easily see it. I mean, Monster Hunter World quintupled engagement across the entire franchise, so there's no telling how far this new entry can go. Players are already excited for Phantom Blade Zero, Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, Light of Motrium, and Tides of Annihilation, all made by Chinese studios stepping up to steal the show. And after seeing all these successes and the engagement that I'm seeing from the players, how excited people are for some of these games that are coming out, I think that Eastern studios have figured out what Western gaming has refused to accept. That the layoffs, the cancellations, the flops aren't because gaming is dying. Players aren't leaving games, they're leaving Western games. They're seeing an industry that's at war with its own audience. They see the greed, the arrogance, and the creative bankruptcy, and they're stepping in to, well, take what Western studios have abandoned. And I think that the industry is threatened by this, and they should be be honest with you. I mean, look at the way that games media reacted to some of these releases, because while Stellar Blade reviewed relatively well, it wasn't without controversy. Heck, they actually had to write an article to tell everybody, why is Stellar Blade so controversial? Are attractive characters unrealistic? Female beauty standards in gaming need to evolve.
See,
I'm
that's
sorry.
the thing. Like, it's a game. The idea that a game should cater to your idea of realism removes the fact that it's a game. And like it's crazy that people even like would like make articles like that, because like this is what makes a game fun, an experience that you don't have anywhere else, an escape from your own reality. That's what a video game is supposed to be. And I think like a lot of just like Eastern like pop culture and stuff lends very well to that. I think here it does this well in movies and TV shows in Western media. It does this really well in that aspect. There are a lot of great fantasy novel series and things like that that get turned into TV shows, hence like Game of Thrones, right? But that we don't have that same level of kind of creativity in the gaming space, at least not anymore, or it's being rinsed off the board because it's not safe enough for whatever corporate marketing scheme is going on. But yeah, that's insane. Like now that I'm watching this video, it kind of makes me wonder, like, would this have happened even sooner if like these Eastern like gaming companies had recognized the desire for more stuff like this, which I also don't know too. I think gaming has just become more popular and oh my god, I can't even talk. I think gaming has just become more like popular in I can't even say the word. General. Fuck. I don't know why I can say that. Like, I feel like gaming has become more popular in general, and it's just like I feel like this would have happened either way, just because you don't have like we don't have a culture where you work, 60 hours a week and you burn in all this time into doing something, even if it is a video game. And some people do that here, right? But like that's not the overall like working culture. Like in a culture where you have like where your work is seemingly your life and your legacy, like it is in a lot of East Asian countries, like that allows you to get some beautiful things out of people, but you have to be willing to make that sacrifice, right? Like I'm sure a lot of people who worked on Final Fantasy XVI didn't see their families for a long time, especially if we're looking at some of those like really strong CGI like 3D animated sequences. Those are impressive. There's no way you're doing that and like you're only doing that within like an 8-hour day. Like I'm pretty sure you're doing that and you're putting in some 9, 10, 12-hour days. So we also have to be like, we have to be reasonable in recognizing that too, though. But and I know I sound like I'm defending Western companies. I'm not. I think it's a little bit more, a little bit less black and white than how it is being portrayed in this particular video. But it's not being portrayed incorrectly. I'm not going to say this video is wrong at all. It's just that there's a lot of different things that allow them to make games like this that in the United States we probably were making decent games like this, but I think this would have happened regardless of the new culture that we have now. I do. I just think it would have happened regardless. And it's just a matter of them. It was. I think it's always been a matter of the Eastern markets understanding that there is a desire for, or not only just a desire, but an interest in their culture and in their ideas and the things that they want to do. Because like, I mean, even like if we just take anime for example, like anime was not cool to watch ever, at least as far as I was growing up, and I'm 25, right? So like when I was growing up, like watching anime was not cool. And now that we have like a few rappers and like professional athletes going, oh yeah, I watch anime and this, that, and the third. Now everybody thinks they're cool as shit for watching anime, and they've only watched like the 2 or 3 that are decent to watch on Netflix, right? So it's like, and that's not to police anime, but it's like that it just wasn't cool to watch anime. And now that like these companies know that there's a pretty decent interest in this stuff, we're getting like movie releases here and all types of different stuff that I don't think we were getting like in years past, just because there was no reason to tap into a market that you don't feel like you have a strong hold in. And I think this would have just happened like eventually had they sought to do this earlier. There's just been a gap for I'd say probably the last 6 years where you've just got a lot of corporate garbage that has flooded the Western gaming market and prevented anything good from happening, and just very little innovation. I'll say that. Very little innovation.
But saying that beauty standards need to evolve is like saying that gravity needs to be more inclusive. You can try to change reality all you want, but people will always be drawn to what they find appealing. That's it. And then came Black Myth Wukong, and that's what they absolutely lost it. Developers not responding to the accusations that they made up, not responding to their headquarters being vandalized because of the accusations they made, not answering questions about inclusivity in a game about a monkey. That's when it became painfully clear. The industry is terrified of these rising Korean and Chinese studios because they can't control them, so they attack them instead. The only controversy surrounding these games was fabricated by media outlets desperately trying to reinforce their own narrative and their own worldviews. And it became laughably obvious once reviews started rolling in for Black Myth Wukong, with multiple critics slamming the game for a lack of female characters and diversity, not realizing that women played a key role Act 3 and beyond. I brought this up before. I think I showed it off in one of my last videos, but it still blows my mind that Inverse would straight up call anyone who bought the game Chinese nationalists and anti-woke. Let that sink in.
What?
Look how detached.
That won't stop Chinese nationalists and anti-woke sales. Definitely not a 10 out of 10. I'll be honest, that's like Hall of Fame hating. I like, I'm not gonna say the game was perfect and it was the best thing ever, like he's been saying and like a lot of other people say, but saying it's not even good that's almost criminal. I feel like that should be jailable. I feel like that should be a jailable offense. To say that fucking Black Myth Wukong was not even good is crazy. Anti-woke sales. How is wanting to play a game and liking a game where you fight literal gods in a very fair, like, boss rush style, I might add, not appealing to your average video gamer who is going to be a middle-aged to like young male? How is that not appealing? Okay, whatever. We're just gonna try to, and this is something too that I think needs to be addressed, is like even bigger than a lot of this, like, jargon around like the political ideas that are put in a video game. We need to stop allowing video games to have people who are part of them who want to like crucify masculinity. Like I think that is like a big thing that we keep seeing over and over again, is you have these like journalists and these people who are so like beside themselves that they feel the need to like attack masculinity in any form of media. And I'm not saying like being a killer and a murderer and all this other stuff is like super masculine, but I'm just saying like you have a product that has an audience that is majority male. If the idea is to make money, PR and press aside, it would be in your best interest to make the game as masculinely appealing as possible. And that's not saying that people who like want to have a high octane testosterone fueled game don't appreciate characters that are, like I'm not one of these like super hard like conservative, like, oh, I don't want to play a girl with a game. I don't want to play a game with a girl in it. Like I hate dumb shit like that. That's such a stupid fucking like hill to die on. Oh, there's a girl in the game. Oh, I'm gonna die. Like, it's fine if a girl is in the game. It's fine if the game has like characters who aren't all 40-year-old gruff-looking white guys. I'm all for that too. Hell, I'm black. I would like to see like a character that I can relate to more in a game. But hey, it doesn't mean that like in every single game we should be playing a feel bad for me simulator. That's not what we want. Like, I don't know. I understand where this Shannon Liao person is trying to like come from, and you have to do this if we're ever going to get over this. You have to start, instead of just like immediately throwing shit at these people, you have to try to figure out where they're coming from. You have to dissect the sincere ignorance here. You have to do that, because otherwise they just stick around and they keep being given work and keep doing all these other things, and they never go away. Because I mean, this is I mean, again, it is flagged as an opinion article, and I'm not gonna say Black Myth Wukong was a 10 out of 10. I would say it was a pretty strong 8 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10. Yeah, 8.5 out of 10. But to say that the game is not even good and that there's Chinese nationalists and that it's all anti-woke sales, that's not even a thing. They should just redact that from the article. There's no such thing as an anti-woke sale in my humble opinion. There's no such thing.
Detached from reality, media has become. Fun action game, no political messaging, monkey with the big stick go bonk. Yeah, that's fascist. This is about an industry that is panicking. Western publishers and media have spent the last decade trying to dictate what players should want, and now it's backfiring. Eastern studios aren't arguing with their audience. They're just giving them what they want. Hell, I just saw that Marvel Rivals had planned to do mid-season rank resets. The players said no, and Marvel Rivals just said, oh, okay, that's fine. I think that's what a lot of the industry has gotten away from. Not what games should be about, not what games should be, but who games are for. Eastern studios, pretty much across the board, are just doing a better job at recognizing what players want and are giving it to them. That's what you need to do to succeed. A lot of Western developers and media are just so caught up in today's events and politics that they're forgetting that players are playing games to escape from that. Eastern games are thriving because they're not chasing trends or politics. They're chasing timeless experiences. They're crafting worlds that players want to revisit years from now, not just ones that are going to give you Twitter engagement for a few weeks before fading into irrelevance. Just the topical nature of Western
Twitter.
games is
Jesus.
already a death sentence. I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm like, I played Borderlands 3 a few years ago, and the entire time I was playing it, I was like, dude, nobody's going to remember any of these pop culture references, any of these cringe jokes or anything like that, because it was just so modern day. It was so today for that game when it released, and I'm like, people aren't going to remember this stuff. I was thinking about Dragon Age the Veilguard. Do you think 20 years from now, somebody's going to pick up that game and go, it's about? What are they even talking about in this? Eastern studios have just been so much more consistent. They don't have any of that extra bullshit that's in there. We just see the normal complaints from them. I think that's another thing to think about as well. When you think about some of these Eastern studios, the vast majority of controversy that surrounds them is the normal stuff. Day one performance, patches, expansion content, microtransactions. I want to go back to those days, man. I'm getting sick and tired of talking about some of these issues with some of these Western games. You don't see their developers, their mentally ill developers, going on Twitter and having a meltdown to keep their politics and their opinions out of their games and out of the public eye, and they just focus on doing their job. They let their games do the talking instead. And oh man, their games are talking. You know, it's been a while since I've done a review. I need to do a review. I've been playing Armored Core 6 again. And it is insane how good that game is. It's absurd how good that game is and how little spotlight it got. The players that loved it, they loved it. The players that don't, haven't played it yet. It's so beautiful, but they don't do anything like trying to make sure that I can see my reflection in the visor of an enemy mech or anything like that. They don't waste a bunch of time and money and resources on all these weird fidelity things that just aren't necessary for a game like that. They just make it tight controls, incredible gameplay, really good story. Heck, it's one of the best stories that I've experienced in a game over the last few years, outside of a couple outliers, of course. There's some really good ones that are out there, but 90% of it was from text. Like, it was just a pop-up on screen and a voice, and that was it. No cutscenes or anything like that. It wasn't necessary. They didn't need that because they just focused on it being pure gameplay. And man, is it so good. That's what players want. That's what these Eastern studios have been delivering. No nonsense, all gameplay. Give the players what they need. That's it. That's why they've been succeeding. And that's why some of these Western games have been
honestly
failing.
like preaching
because,
right now, I swear.
You know, I think they got comfortable. They had a stranglehold on the industry. They had more money, more developers, more resources, more experience. But now you have some of these studios that are popping up in some of these other countries.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. They got comfortable, and now you got like a whole slew of people who have been waiting for their opportunity to jump in the market. And because there's just nothing here that lasts longer than maybe a month before it goes dead, because again, you have like just these lazy development cycles and things like that stop the game from being fun past a month once people beat the game and realize, oh, okay, I can just do the same thing over and over. There's really not that much to the end game. You just have a lot of stuff like that, and now you've got a whole slew of people who are now able to take advantage of the fact that there's just there's nothing that would push them so far under the release radar that now these are the games that are going up to the top. I mean, even a lot of the gacha games, even if they have a decent concurrent player count for 3 or 4 months, that's fine because at that point they've already got the whales and stuff, right? But and a lot of these Western games that he's talking about, like the game is literally dead. Like I don't know what the metric is for a concurrent player count for a game to be dead, but I mean if you release a game and you sell 500,000 units just on console platforms alone, and the peak player count after 3 months is like 400, 500 people. Well, that's being dramatic. I'd say like 1,000 people. That's bad. That's because the game is just not fulfilling in any way outside of completing it. Like that's bad. And it's just like it's the lazy development and the lack of replayability, just all the other things are taking away from creating games that are seemingly timeless, right? Or that should be timeless if you want the player base to continue looking for your studio's name and looking for everything that you have to offer in building a video game for them. So yeah. I mean, we're about 15 minutes in. I think I've kind of got the gist of this video. And I'm running up on 40 minutes here, but yeah. Shouts out to Legendary Drops for the great video. I mean, this is such a good, like, kind of hierarchical, very very practical overview of why this is happening, and just it's refreshing to see somebody not go on a like political rant, just screaming like, you know, down with DEI and death to woke agendas and all that stuff for like 6 hours. Like it gets to a point where it's like yes, those are all nice buzzwords and terms that you hate and don't like, and that you're saying so that your audience gets riled up in the comments and is ready to, you know, take pitchforks to the nearest game dev studio. But this is just honest, practical advice and criticism that would apply to this whether you use those terms or not. And I appreciate that a lot. I appreciate him for not being a grifter. So yeah, that'll be it for me today, guys. If you liked the video, if you liked hearing my opinions and talking on stuff, let me know down in the comments, and let me know some games that you think really suffered because of a lot of the political agendas and stuff that get pushed into games. I'm sick of it. I think we all are, and I think a lot of that stuff is going to change, but it's going to take, you know, these corporations losing money in the billions before they decide to do anything about it. So if you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Deuces.